This morning, I am honored and filled with joy to stand here as your new rabbi. It's not exactly how I envisioned it, to say the least, but nonetheless, I have looked forward to this moment, to this opportunity for days, weeks, months, and even years. I feel I am put on this earth to serve the Jewish people. It is my passion and my obligation and my privilege and my pleasure. To get to this moment right now, I've moved countries, I've learned new languages, studied programs, traveled, taught, counseled, made mistakes, and also had some successes. Every single moment has been worth it because right now I am standing here as your new rabbi. They say interviewing for a rabbinic role is like dating. When you find the right match, you don't look any further. For me, the Village Temple was that natural fit. You showed yourselves to be sophisticated, intellectual, non-pretentious, kind, and community-oriented people. You asked piercing but compassionate questions. You cared about those more vulnerable than you. You created opportunities for your children and your teens and yourselves to live Jewishly. And honestly, you just seemed really downtown. As someone that lives uptown, I'm going to have to work really hard to try and pretend that I am as cool as you are. These first few months with you have been remarkable. As you may know, I've been on a mission of sorts to meet someone from every single Village Temple household before the high holidays. I didn't quite get there, but I'm pretty close. I've taken walks in the neighborhood, and you've come down to your lobby or your stoop to spend a few minutes of Shabbat with me, just talking. I've spent time on your rooftops for small gatherings. I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of Zoom meetings and made countless Shabbat Shalom phone calls. I've prayed with your young children and played trivia with your teens. After all of these encounters, I want to say thank you for welcoming me, for confiding in me, for asking me questions, both existential and everyday. If we haven't connected yet, when I call you, answer. I want to know you. When I do meet with you, when we talk, I hear a lot of emotions that you would expect. Anxiety, stress, trepidation, and yes, even fear. And that makes sense. I feel it also. We live in scary times. We're afraid for our children. What does back to school even mean? Should we have taken our children to college? Should we allow them to socialize? Can we stop them? We are afraid for our parents. They are already vulnerable. Should we move them? Should we see them? We are afraid for ourselves. How can we work? Will we be healthy? Can we even go out? And we are afraid for our country, and we are afraid for our community. And it all makes sense, because like some kind of cosmic contraction, our world shrunk violently and quickly. If you're not a New Yorker, if your heart is not with this city, you can't really understand what the beginning of this dreadful thing was like. The silencing of the streets when the only sound was the smattering of frantic sirens, the shuttering of schools and the palpable panic of parents everywhere, the stockpiling of supplies. Who knew what was coming? The financial fears, the illnesses, the deaths, watching a hospital spring up in Central Park. Unthinkable. Seeing our city itself get sick, watching our friends and our loved ones leave this earthly world, seeing people in my family die, seeing people in your family die. This was real. This was trauma, and we're still in it. The way I see it, we have two choices. Choice one is be like Jonah, whose story we read on Yom Kippur. Jonah, you remember the story, is called on by God to deliver a prophecy to the city of Nineveh. He's supposed to tell the Ninevites that they've sinned and they need to atone. He can't take it. He's terrified of his responsibility. So what does he do? You know what he does. He goes and throws himself into the belly of a whale. He hides out. He buries himself in the sand. It's a very human response, by the way. He runs, he panics, he shuts himself off from God and from the world. That's choice one. Run and hide. I don't mean literally, I mean metaphorically. Hide away from the world. Choice one is to live forever in isolation and loneliness and darkness and fear. Avoid the world. Shun God. And maybe for a time, especially in the beginning of this, that made sense for us. Maybe we will have to live like that again soon. I hope not. Choice one of how to react to a pandemic is to make the choice Jonah made, to live a life of fear. But remember, no great Jewish thinker has ever urged the Jews to be like Jonah. No one wears bracelets that say, "What would Jonah do?" He is not a role model. He's an anti-hero. There is another choice. Jonah, remember, eventually does come out of that whale and move forward with his life. I know it's Rosh Hashanah, but this pandemic started for us right around Purim, and I can't stop thinking about Queen Esther. She dared to approach King Ahasuerus to out herself as a Jew. He sat there with all the power, holding his scepter in his hand, and she knew that with one quick movement of that scepter, she could be sentenced to death. But nevertheless, she persisted. She approached him and spoke out for the Jewish people, saving us from Haman's hateful plans. Think about Shiphrah and Puah, the midwives who defied an order from Pharaoh himself to save the lives of infants. Fear must have penetrated their very bodies, but they did not heed Pharaoh's evil commands. Or think about Pharaoh's daughter even, who at great risk defied her own father's decree and saved the life of Moses. Think about the Maccabees, a tiny ragtag group of country folk rising up against a massive, all-powerful opposing army. But they did, and they won, and we're still here because of it. There is another choice besides living like Jonah did. The other choice, besides fear, is courage. For 5781, I challenge us to choose courage. Courage in the face of fear is a Jewish mandate. Don't be like Jonah. Be like Esther. Be like Shiphrah and Puah, like Pharaoh's daughter or Judah Maccabee, who looked fear in the face and said, "Not anymore." Choose to remind yourself that pandemics end. They always have, and this one will too. Be brave enough to believe in God even in the face of terrible times. Know that your children will recover from this, and so will you. Pull your nerves together and be confident that our beloved city of New York will come back. After all, we've been counted out many times before. I'm not talking about being reckless or foolish. After all, I'm giving a high holiday sermon to an empty room right now, for goodness sake. I believe in science, in precautions, and safety above all else. I'm talking about having courage of the heart. It's what Judaism calls ometz lev. There is no measure to the strength of a people when we arm ourselves with ometz. That's what the rabbis taught. So please, do not give up. Do not dwell in fear. We've done enough of that. It's time for something else. Speaking of courage, a note to the frontline workers in our community. I have a story just for you. Standing at the shores of the Red Sea, Moses raised his staff to part the waters, and nothing happened. With the Egyptian army hot on their tail, the Israelites panicked. Moses had never failed to produce a miracle before. Murmurs erupted in the crowd. Should they turn back and surrender? Should they allow themselves to be enslaved once more? They felt defeated and hopeless and paralyzed with fear. Then out of the crowd, a single figure emerged. A man named Nachshon walked into the water. He waded in that water and it came up to his knees. Nothing happened. He went deeper, so the water rose up to his chest. Still no miracle came. He forged in until the water covered his face, above his nose, and he could scarcely breathe. And only at that moment, when he was almost completely consumed by water, did that Red Sea part. And the rest of the people followed behind Nachshon, walking towards liberation. To the healthcare professionals among us, to all of the frontline workers among us, you are our Nachshon. When the rest of us were shuttered in our apartments, you charged into the breach. You waded into that water, and because of you, your bravery, your perseverance, your courage, we, too, are on our way towards liberation. The village temple honors you. You are our heroes. Thank you. We see you. We clap for you. We are grateful for you. What you've done, the sacrifices you've made, the unthinkable commitment to preserving the physical health of others is a heroic mitzvah. In the face of disaster, you screwed your courage to the sticking place and you saved so many. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty much over 5780. It was a year of sadness, stress, anxiety, tragedy, and fear. I'm ready to believe that 5781 will be different. I'm ready to walk into this new chapter in my rabbinate and say that the village temple will be leaders in the downtown community. We will be innovative educators, inspiring preachers, and supportive congregants. We will fight for justice when others run. We will have the audacity to move forward despite what the world will throw at us. And I challenge you to make this a year of courage for yourself. Have ometz lev, strength of the heart. Come forward, come out of those dark places and into the light. And so this morning, as we welcome the new year, I say that we will beat this. May this year bring you renewed hope in our world. May you dare to dream of a future beyond our reality. When fear comes, and it will, may you face it with courage. At the end of Moses' life, he said these words to the new leader, Joshua, Chazak, Chazak, ve'amatz. May you go from strength to strength, and may you be strengthened. Shana Tova.